Hello and welcome to the Roundtable Podcast. I am Shogun. Thank you to our live audience, everybody who joined us tonight. We have 52 people in the voice chat right now. I expect quite a few more will join us. So we're always happy to have the Flat Earth community with us. I always say Roundtable and Flat Earth is peanut butter and jam. But nevertheless, we are the Roundtable Discord server. Just Google Roundtable Discord, go to Disboard, check us through politics or conspiracy theories. You'll find us at the top of either category. We're on every social media, Reddit, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Periscope, you name it. We have a Minecraft server. We're the roundtablediscord.com. We have a YouTube channel, Podcast Addict, Podbean, Songs of SoundCloud, everywhere. So that being said, this will be a formal moderated debate format. The debaters will be Spherical Earth proponent, Weaver, head admin of the Roundtable, versus Wizard Slayer, standing in at last minute for Flat Earth Jedi, representing Flat Earth. Hopefully this can be a recurring event, community crossover. Nevertheless, Makino will be taking the first turn. It will be 5 rounds of 5 minutes each. The moderator will be Sir Pauly. He will notify the speakers when their turn begins, when they have 1 minute remaining, when it ends, and he will keep track of what round we are on so we do not forget, because believe me, it does happen that people forget. And then after that, we will have a straw poll where everyone can vote not on who they agree with, but who they thought did a better job in the debate, right? And then after that, there'll be an open discussion. So that being said, where everybody can speak. So that being said, Pauly, when you're ready, you can hand the mic to Weaver, and then you will hand the mic to Wizard.
Perfect. Weaver, you ready, my friend?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, here we go.
All right, then. First of all, I would like to introduce myself not as a proponent of the globe Earth, because I don't want to prove anything. My goal here is to be a flat Earth skeptic. So I am going to be criticizing the ideas and questioning things that do not make sense to me. So when you have a model, which I assume you do, a flat Earth model, and then you have a system of ideas that work together. It's like an and statement. So you have this is true, and this is true, and this is true. So if even one of them turns out to be false, then you can summarily dismiss the entire thing. So my goal is to focus on one thing and one thing only for a couple of reasons. One, it simplifies things. It doesn't overcomplicate things. I'm not here to use big words or make things, highly complicated, put a lot of calculations. Not at all. I'm here to explain things very simply and hopefully get to the truth, which is, I assume, our goal as a whole. So, first of all, the point that I want to focus on here is gravity. I believe that gravity, the idea of gravity as we understand it, and the effects that we have measured, is incompatible with the flat Earth model for a variety of reasons. One of the biggest ones is that if gravity is as we understand it, then if you were standing anywhere else other than the center of a disk, you would be having a directional force that is not perpendicular to the surface. And by that, I'm going to post a picture so that doesn't sound complicated at all. So here it is. Okay, there's going to be a net force that's not downwards. It's going to have an angle. So you're going to be pulled towards the center of the disk if that is the case. And I just made that in 3D Max. So, and you can see that those are forces or vectors, essentially. And if you get the net, if you add them all together, there will be a directional thing. So you would be moving towards the center, and you would, and if there is if there's friction, well, if there is no friction, let's say there is no resistance whatsoever, what would happen is you would oscillate back and forth. But obviously there is resistance, so you would go and accelerate really fast towards the center of the Earth, and then move back and forth, and obviously the air resistance would slow you down, and eventually you would end up at a rest position at the center of the Earth. Two, there's another issue with the flat Earth model. If we understand stress and tension of rocks and Earth correctly, we can also, if we understand the mass of the Earth correctly, and we have the measurements done correctly, then there is no material that is strong enough that we understand that can hold itself in that shape. It would crumble under its own weight into a spherical shape. Why? Because it is equal in all directions. It is the state of lowest energy. It is the resting point. And what else? All right, so let's talk about experimentations. Okay, so Point is, if we're here to find the truth, then obviously we need empirical data. I assume that is what we all want to do. And I also believe that this whole skepticism about globe Earth is because there is, at least to many people, a lack of empirical evidence. And I understand it. It's healthy skepticism, and I appreciate it. It's always good to be skeptical of things, especially when you don't have firsthand knowledge of it, or if you don't have the firsthand access to the information right directly. If you don't have it, it's understandable to be skeptical. And so I'm not here to essentially attack anyone. I don't necessarily trust NASA myself fully, even though my brother-in-law works there, and I was there at the launch of the GRACE satellite, which, by the way, is based on gravity and measuring Earth's gravity. And the way it worked was there was 2 satellites orbiting the Earth, and based on the distance that changes between the two, you can measure the variety or variation of gravity on the Earth. Thank you. So that's another point that I want to get to, variation of gravity. Now, there is one model of flat Earth that I know, which is accelerating disk. So the disk is accelerating upwards at 9.8 meters per second, approximately. Fine, let's say that is true. I will assume that is true for now. If that is the case, then gravity or the acceleration has to be uniform throughout everywhere. That obviously causes a lot of problems because we can easily, even when we go on heights such as an airplane, 30,000 feet, we can detect approximately 0.3% decrease in gravity. That is impossible in a disk accelerating upwards. It's just not possible. It just isn't. And also, there's also the thing about buoyancy, which I will address afterwards because I'm going to just yield my time for now. Thank you all.
All right, Wizard, are you ready, my friend?
Yes, sir.
Okay, here we go.
All right. So all this dude effectively did was beat up some straw man model. Okay. So very simply, he distanced himself from the globe, which is hilarious. But of course, the globe Earth is a positive claim. Therefore, it has the burden of proof. It's actually a positive claim of specificity. It claims a radius of 3959 miles, a circumference of 24,901 miles. It claims that it's got an axial rotation of 1,040 miles per hour east of the equator. That's a very specific positive claim. It thus has the burden of proof. Effectively, what you're doing is committing a shifting the burden of proof fallacy. You also brought up gravity and then just reified the idea of gravity to explain how it operates. That's a reification fallacy. And of course, again, the entire time you were discussing flat Earth, you were using a straw man fallacy. So not one single flat earther that I've ever met, except for the Flat Earth Society, which is disinformation and we all distance ourselves from, thinks that the Earth is a disk shooting up through space. Literally no one. So I don't even have to address the whole spiel of how it's physically impossible because no one thinks that. So what we actually, our actual stance, is we have falsified the positive claim of the globular heliocentric model. Axial rotation has never been substantiated, and curvature has never been substantiated. Also, we have to deal with the issue of the necessary antecedent to gas pressure is a physical barrier, physical containment, as does all observable phenomena show us this. The globe Earth claims to be the one exception, with no evidence of that being the case. We have a pressurized system on Earth. It claims to be adjacent to this near perfect vacuum of 10 to the negative 17 torr. Of course, a physical impossibility due to the second law of thermodynamics, entropy, energy transfer. High pressure system will immediately seek equilibrium, migrating to the low pressure system. Thus, it would have to be physically contained. You keep bringing up gravity, again, operating with reification, but gravity has never been substantiated. You would have to actually clarify what mystical deified gravity you're speaking of, Newtonian, Einsteinian, or whatever else you want to come up with. So we know that there is observably no curvature whatsoever. We see way too far. In fact, we have observations that are literal impossibilities on the globe Earth and the claimed metrics within. The black swan, for example. So we have falsified the claim of curvature with a radius of 3,959 miles. Therefore, if there is no curvature, it would be flat. We do not claim a definitive model. If you don't know, we're not even allowed to freely traverse the Earth. We can't go to the North Pole, and it's literally illegal to try to freely, privately traverse the South Pole, quote unquote, which of course it is just Antarctica. We don't actually know the specifics and entirety of the Earth because we can't even travel it. So we don't claim a definitive model, and no intelligence.
What happened?
I'm not sure. Did we lose you, sir?
The globe earthers got to him.
We can't
Yeah,
hear you anymore, Wizard.
He was shut down.
Wizard. Yeah, I paused this time.
Thank you. Wizard, are you all right, bro? Did they get you?
The NSA or CIA get you.
Sounds like he
Goddamn.
lost the connection.
He might have just gotten a phone call because he's on his phone or on mobile, and he stopped instantly talking.
Flat Earth
Straight
dangerous,
down the memory hole.
dangerous business.
We'll wait. I hope it doesn't take too long to reconnect.
Yeah, you know
Meantime,
those flat Earth satellites. The pickup on the signal is very sketchy.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I'm very glad.
Yeah, that's my bad. Apparently, I was going out, so I backed out. But just in conclusion, to wrap it up real fast, you strawman the flat Earth. No one thinks it's a flat Earth or disk. Literally, no one thinks it's a disk shooting up through space at 9.8 meters per second squared. You reified space. You had a strawman fallacy, a shift in the burden of proof fallacy. You didn't even actually claim your positive claim of the globular Earth. You're trying to beat up a strawman. We don't claim a definitive model. There, I can see the rest of my time. Whatever.
Well, I was going to say you do have a minute 22 left.
Okay, yeah. That's pretty much it. I mean, he's bringing up gravity. He's going to have to substantiate that gravity even actually exists. You cannot just reify a claim. That's a reification fallacy. And again, he has to address the necessary antecedent, the gas pressure problem. He has to substantiate axial rotation. He has to substantiate curvature. Now, conveniently, you can disconnect yourself from the globe Earth and not want to talk about it. I wouldn't want to if I were you either, but that's what the debate is. Is the Earth a globe or is it flat? We don't have to claim a definitive model. We don't have to replace your model because your model's been falsified. So that's it.
All right, Weaver, my friend. You ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
All right. First of all, I would like to formally apologize for strawmanning. I am not very familiar with the flat Earth model. It appears that you're not very familiar with it too, because a lot of people have different models. Who knows who's it's correct. That's interesting. But there's one thing in the name, which is flat Earth. That itself is a positive claim. I am not here to be a proponent for the globe Earth for a variety of reasons. One, because I'm not a teacher. I'm not here to teach you all about the shape of the Earth. That takes disciplined, scientific pursuit of knowledge. That is not my job to do, and it cannot be done that quickly. This is something that takes a lot of time, effort, and classes to do effectively. So that's why I'm not being a proponent of the globe Earth, even though I do believe in the globe Earth, because this is not what matters. What matters is if the Earth is flat or not, which is what you're claiming the Earth to be, which is a positive claim, which is what I am attacking. So let's talk about the thing you said about the pressure barrier. How can there be air and vacuum? Well, I'm going to ask a question, and you can answer after I ask it, and then I'll take my time back, which is, does pressure decrease as you increase altitude?
Yes. Gradient does not address why there's ever gas pressure in the first place.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask one other question. If you follow that to the end, if we assume that there's a gradient of it becoming less and less, what would happen if you continue that indefinitely?
It would reach where it's being contained.
That wasn't a clear answer, but I'm going to assume, you know what, I'll answer that question. Simple. If there's a gradient and it is going towards something, then it will reach that something. So if it becomes less and less and less and less and less as you go up, eventually it will be vacuum. First it will be partial vacuum and then vacuum. Why this works is because of gravity. Gravity is holding it down. There is no magical barrier at all. It simply is falling down to the Earth. Now, let's since you don't accept the accelerating disk, which thankfully you don't, very glad. You still believe that the Earth is flat. You believe that there is no curvature that has been observed. What I am saying is that if the Earth is flat and if gravity exists, then it is impossible for us to be experiencing gravity the same way that we are right now. It's just impossible. It doesn't make sense geometrically, and I pointed that out in the images. But more importantly, gravity, does it exist? Well, we do know that when we drop something, it goes down. What this force is, I don't know. I don't know how it works. I don't claim to know how it works. Physicists don't really know how it works. Actually, science is very tentative and error-correcting pursuit of knowledge, where, if you make a mistake, then you correct yourself and align yourself to the new data that makes more sense, and it's a better inductive argument. So, and as always, science is inductive arguments. There is no proof. There is empirical data, and there's always a possibility of it being wrong. It does not guarantee the conclusion. It is a very humble pursuit of knowledge. Let's go about gravity. So, do you deny that if you drop an object, it goes down? I yield my time.
No.
Okay. All right. Why does it go down?
Because of relative density would be more than sufficient explanation.
Okay, density. Thank you. That is precisely what I wanted. So, what is density, and why does density matter? That's a really good question. I want to answer that. Well, density and how it works and buoyancy is all based on gravity. It's a consequence of gravity. You cannot sidestep it. It is a direct
1 minute, man.
consequence of it. Sure. So, how does that work exactly? What is buoyancy? Why does things float, and why do things sink? Well, we do know that in the atmosphere there's particles. Yes, of course. And we have surface area. There is more particles, in essentially kinetic energy, more particles hitting the bottom area essentially than the top area. There's a gradient. There's net force. And this is the actual what's happening on a molecular level. More molecules are hitting you in a way that you get a net momentum. Now, if gravity was not responsible for this, we can easily prove it. Free fall. Free fall is easy to do. You can even jump, have a fast moving camera. Very easy experiment. And see if something floats in free fall. I'll give you the short answer. No, it doesn't. It won't sink or go up. It will stay stationary. Why? Because it is gravity that causes.
Okay. So
That was beautiful.
you ready for me to go? Ready for me to go? All right.
Okay, go ahead, my friend.
Cool. Once again, you're reifying gravity. Okay. You asked, why does something fall? Well, when you drop it, it goes down. Okay. The only need for this deified, fictitious, quote unquote, force of gravity is the need to explain how a globe Earth could even theoretically be postulated. Gravity is a requirement for your postulation. We know the Earth is a geocentric stationary plane. There's a natural frame of reference of up and down. We're on a plane. You think the Earth is this magic cartoon ball. Thus, as you change directions, you're going to have to be pulled in due to the proportionate mass of the center of that mass to explain how you're still on the ball. It also has to explain the convexity of the immensity of oceans, etc., etc. It is your get out of jail free card, but you're just reifying it. I also, in my initial statement, I asked you to specify what type of gravity you're invoking, which you still did not do, but I will help you out. There's the Newtonian postulation, mutual mass acceleration, proportionate mass, never been substantiated. There's the Einsteinian, which Newtonian gravity was superseded in 1915 by Einsteinian gravity. The theory of relativity makes a few claims. It attributes a constant speed to light, which has not been substantiated either. It says that energy and mass are interchangeable. And then it says that gravity is the effect of the warping of space-time. Space a conceptual abstraction, time a conceptual abstraction. You cannot apply a physical property to a privation, which is space, meaning nothing. The absence of anything, nothing, a privation. So you cannot give a property to a privation, and you cannot give physical properties to conceptual abstractions, space nor time. So on its face, it's a reification fallacy. Einstein, the little incestuous grabbler that he was, he reified space itself. Again, when we say that the Earth is flat, that's because of all observations showing us that there is no curvature. Well, if it's not curving, then it's flat. If all observation shows us it's flat, it's therefore a logical deduction that it is flat until proven otherwise. Okay, and again, you still distance yourself from your positive claim, but the globe Earth is the positive claim. It has the burden of proof. You're shifting the burden of proof to a straw man model that you want to put onto my side, but that's just, you know, an intellectually dishonest and irresponsible way to go about this. So you keep on going on about gravity and how if the Earth was flat, gravity wouldn't work, or it couldn't be flat because of gravity. Well, you're reifying gravity. We haven't established that gravity is a thing. Okay, when you drop something, relative density, as in volume over mass relative to the medium that's encompassed in, is going to allow it to go down. That's why helium goes up, because it weighs less than the air. So in fact, all observation shows us that it's based on the relative density relationship. You are imposing some new unsubstantiated causality known as gravity. Okay, so that's your claim. You have to substantiate it. You don't get to just take the reification of gravity and then ask me how it would work if the Earth was flat, because we don't need gravity and it's not real. And so I don't believe in things. I stick with empirical evidence. We take an actual scientific approach, right? And you are just simply based on theoretical conceptual abstractions, reifying your model. What's up?
Nobody else is participating except the two debaters and the moderator. Everyone else should be silent.
Okay. I didn't get it. Okay.
Okay, so actually, you know, gravity, there is a more complex thing here. Weight, acceleration, it's actually, you know, medium, location, coherency, you know, a few other things specific. But we don't even need to get in that depth of an explanation, because simply, once again, on a geocentric stationary plane, there's a natural frame of reference of up and down. You need gravity to explain how it can be pulled in all directions to the center of the mass of this cartoon ball that's never been proven. So simply what happened, we were all taught and indoctrinated with this idea of some globe Earth heliocentric model. We all thought the Earth was a globe at one point, but some of us chose to go verify that for ourselves. Once that happens, you find out there is no actual empirical evidence at all whatsoever to substantiate the claim of axial rotation, curvature, or the vacuum of space, or warping of space-time, or any of this nonsense. So through any form of experimentation, it's never been substantiated that gravity is even a thing. I don't have to explain how it could work on the flat Earth. And again, we don't adhere to a definitive model, which comes back to the original point. Once again, the globe Earth is a positive claim, and it has the burden of proof. I'm done.
All right, my friend Mac, are you ready to go?
Oh, certainly. Thank you. So first of all, the first time when you said I strawmanned your argument, that was correct, and I did apologize because I was not familiar with your argument. You had a chance to present yourself, and then afterwards I have been addressing your specific claims. I immediately dismissed the claim that I was strawmanning, which was an accelerating disk, because that is, in fact, intellectually dishonest. And I want to be honest. That is what I am doing here to the best of my ability. Now, as for empirical evidence, well, there is so much empirical evidence for gravity that you would have to be dishonest to not believe in it. But here's the question. Can we measure gravity? Is it possible to measure gravity? Is it possible to understand, something about gravity? Because the truth is, it's still, as I said earlier, it's not very understood. But just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it exists. So let me give an example of how we can measure gravity. Well, there is an experiment known as the Cavendish experiment, and I'll explain it very simple, very easy experiment. It's essentially a dumbbell hanging from a thread, a strong thread. I believe it's a quartz thread. There's also a mirror on it to detect the rotation easily with light, because distance is easier, it's more sensitive. But you don't necessarily need that. You can simply measure the position change. Then what you do is you get two heavy objects on opposing sides, and you let gravity do its magic, do its magic. And I'm saying magic here because, you know what? I don't understand. I don't know if it's space curving. Why the fuck does that even matter? The point is it there? And what is it related to? And the point of this experiment is to understand that, yes, there is a 1-to-1 correlation between mass and gravity. And there lies the key. Mass and gravity are correlated 1-to-1. So if you increase the mass by 2, right, times 2, then gravity will increase 2 times. That we can say with certainty based on empirical data. If that is the case, and if gravity is multi-directional, which has been proven, and almost any college campus, you can do the Cavendish experiment yourself. There are YouTube videos of it being done by teachers, but they're all part of this great conspiracy, I guess. So it's fine. Even the laws of physics apparently are part of this great conspiracy because they seem to, for some reason, work when we do the Cavendish experiment. Very easy, very simple. In fact, I am willing to pay right now. I'm making this right now. I am willing to pay for equipment to do a precise up to $2,500. I am willing right now, in front of all of you, I'm saying, pay that much money. And if we can prove that gravity does exist with that Cavendish experiment, and $2,500 is too much, actually, for this, but I want lab-grade equipment. And then if it turns out that it does exist, then I would like that money returned. And this is a challenge I'm giving to you. All right, so if you're willing to take it, you can contact me in DMs afterwards. Because you know what? I know the Cavendish experiment works. And you know what else it tells about gravity? It says that it's unidirectional. It's all directional, omnidirectional. That's the word, omnidirectional. It is in all directions. Hence, if you're on a flat Earth, gravity would be at an angle. It is not perpendicular to the surface, wherein lies the problem. If gravity is real, flat Earth is false. 2, I don't have to be a proponent of globe Earth. Why the hell do I have to be a proponent of globe Earth? I am just a skeptic that bases my ideas on empirical evidence. Yes, based on empirical evidence, I came to the understanding of globe Earth. That is how I came to that understanding. But it is not my duty or responsibility in any way, shape, or form to make you understand it. That's so. That being said, let me get into the dishonest shifting that you're doing, which is denying that flat earthers have a model. I clearly know that flat earthers have a model. And yeah, and you know what? If you want to sidestep that, I understand it. I understand it's a weak model, and I gotta mute that guy because he's echoing. So I understand that it's a weak model, and there's different models because the problem with the flat Earth thing is that it needs a new model for every phenomenon because one model does not explain all. But I don't really care a shit about. Sorry, I don't care about these things. All I care about is gravity and is it compatible with flat Earth. If you can prove that, then great. If you can't, then you have to summarily dismiss your point of view that the Earth is not flat because it's impossible for it to be flat if gravity is real. This is very simple logic. That's all I'm saying. I yield my time.
All right, are you ready to go, Wizard?
Yep.
Here we go.
Okay. Well, as long as you keep doing it, I'm going to keep calling you out for it. Straw man again. Flat earthers don't have a model. We don't claim a definitive model. It is that simple. It doesn't matter if you like it or dislike it. It really doesn't matter. You're clearly getting triggered, but no one cares. Okay, so you brought up Cavendish. Here's the deal. You keep calling it an experiment, but in a scientific experiment, you have an independent variable that you can manipulate, thus, substantiating the postulation of causality. Okay, Cavendish did not do that. It's very simple. For one, Cavendish isn't even consistent. It has quite a bit of window of error. But whenever you do get the result that you like, you'll cherry pick it. And even when that happens, that does not create the correlation to the imposed causation. It's very simple. So there's actually a plethora of explanations as to why we could see some type of derivation of movement. Electrostatics, for example, which is a much stronger force than gravity even claims to be. So you couldn't even claim to be able to differentiate the gravity from the much stronger force. So it is completely preposterous to continue to postulate that. Unfortunately for your side, that's the best that y'all have, and it just doesn't work. On its face, it isn't even an experiment. So once again, you still have yet to in any way substantiate your model, which is a positive claim. You talk about sidestepping. That's what you're doing. This is the second or third time, and you still haven't even given any form of positive evidence for the globe Earth, which is a positive claim, thus has the burden of proof. You are again committing the shifting the burden of proof fallacy against a straw man argument of a model that no one here actually holds to, because we don't claim a definitive model, because we don't have access to all the information required to actually come up with a definitive model. Okay, so your main argument, I suppose, is that flat Earth can't work with gravity. Well, I've already addressed it. I suppose I'll have to address it again. Again, gravity has never been substantiated. It claims it was superseded in 1915 of the previous postulation of Newtonian gravity, which he didn't even postulate an explanation himself. He actually asked to not be associated with it, and he said the idea that gravity would work through a vacuum of space over great distances is to me so great an absurdity that no man with competent thinking and philosophical matters could ever fall into it. In 1915, Einsteinian gravity superseded it. It is again the claim that gravity is the effect of the warping of space-time. Again, space is a conceptual abstraction, time is a conceptual abstraction. You cannot attribute physical properties to it. You cannot attribute physicality to a privation because it's nothing in and of itself. It's the absence of something. A shadow is a privation. It is nothing in and of itself. It's the absence of light. It can have an attribute. It's cooler in a shadow. It cannot have a property. Okay, so you cannot attribute a physical property to a privation. So the theory of relativity in and of itself on its face isn't even possible theoretically because it's a reification fallacy. Cavendish is not an experiment, as we've already discussed. It doesn't have an independent variable that is manipulated, and you are just assuming that your imposed causality that you went into the observation with is being confirmed once you see an observation that's once again a reification of gravity. So all you've presented so far is a plethora of reifications, and you continue to go back to the straw man, and once again you still aren't addressing the primary issue here, which is that the globe Earth is a positive claim and thus has a burden of proof. The globe Earth makes very specific claims. It claims axial rotation of 1,040 miles per hour east at the equator. You're going to have to substantiate axial rotation. You claim that the Earth is a ball and it has a curvature of roughly 7.98 inches per mile squared, and it has 24,901 circumference, 3959 radius. You would have to substantiate curvature consistent or conducive with that imposed metrics, and that is a positive claim. So you have the burden of proof. If you don't like it, it doesn't matter. So it's very simple. The globe Earth is making a positive claim. It's yet to be substantiated. All we have to do is falsify that positive claim for it to be wrong, and then we go with what we do have, because ironically, you brought up empirical evidence, but nothing you said at all whatsoever was actually empirical or verifiable. So we go with actual empirical evidence and observations that we can consistently repeat and replicate, such as long-distance observations, which are physical impossibilities on the globe Earth with the claimed metrics. So you would have to counter that because you're shifting the burden of proof, and that is also a fallacy. We know that the Earth is flat because there's no observed curvature. Very simple.
Oh shit,
so,
bro! Do you stop? On,
Don't interrupt, for fuck's sakes. He's got the mic.
Yeah,
He's debating. He's got the fucking uninterrupted time.
He needs an extra 10 seconds for that or something.
Yeah,
that's all good. I'm almost done. I'm done.
I paused it.
Yeah. We just stick to what we do know, which is there's no curvature, thus it's flat. It's a geocentric stationary plane. We don't claim a definitive model, so we don't have any form of burden of proof here. We're just claiming what is objective and verifiable. Again, for the third time, the globe Earth is a positive claim, thus has the burden of proof.
Time. All right, Mac and I, you ready to go, my friend?
Quick clarification. Only 2 debaters. They get 5 rounds each. After that, it's open. Until then, nobody else should be speaking whatsoever. Thank you.
I apologize. I'm sorry.
All right, Weaver. Sorry, I called you Mac. Weaver, are you ready to go?
Yes, I'm very ready, actually.
Here we go.
So the thing where you're saying I'm doing a fallacy by using straw manning your point of view, I would, at the end, when I'm done, I would like to give an example of how I'm straw manning you. Because the only straw man that I did, which was initial, which was the acceleration of the disk, which again was me reading up on the flat Earth model. And I did sincerely apologize for that because I don't like straw manning. In fact, I fucking studied logic. Anyways, fuck that shit. Sorry, I shouldn't say that word. All right, so let me get back to independent variable. So that was the point you made with the Cavendish experiment. Is there an independent and dependent variable? Yeah, yes, there is. The mass, is the independent variable. It could be the mass, it could be the length, it could be anything. Whatever. The point is you have a single independent variable and you have a single dependent variable. The dependent variable is the motion of those the dumbbell. That is it. It's a very simple thing. Independent, dependent. I don't know what the complexity here is. But you know what? Let's just say that is not precise enough for you. Fine. I agree. It's definitely not precise enough unless you do it under extremely well done lab grade equipment, which again can be done. And it's not that complex an experiment. It is a string two dense objects attached to a pole, essentially, a rod, and two other dense objects that are there. Why dense? Simple. Because you're trying to minimize radius or distance. You're trying to maximize the effect of gravity because it is actually incredibly weak, which is why it requires amplification of every single variable. What you do is you minimize it, distance over r squared, right? Mass 1 times mass 2 times gravitational constant times mass 1 times mass 2 over radius squared. So what do? You minimize distance to amplify it so you can see a visible effect. But let's go about another method of measuring mass, which is, it is in its name, mass spectrometry, which is essentially you ionize an atom, and then you have a deflector. And the heavier the atom is, the less it will be deflected. The lighter it is, the more it will be deflected. Very simple. F equals ma, simple, not complicated. Also, electrostatics. I like that you pointed that out. Yeah, the electric force is one of the four forces. Absolutely, and it is very, very strong. The key point, as you pointed out, it is very strong. What happens with electrostatic forces in general? Well, lightning is what happens. Whenever electrostatic energy builds up, there's a discharge because everything likes to level out. That's how things work. Things reach the lowest state of energy and they become balanced. When there is a buildup, what happens is there's a discharge. That discharge creates the air to break down, creating plasma, and it goes down to Earth. That is electrostatics. That's that happening in real life. And you can see it, you can observe it. It's empirical. And as for the correlation, the one-to-one correlation, yeah, true. The law of gravity, laws and causes are different things. In fact, there's a video done by Vsauce, which is excellent, to understand what laws are and what and causes are. But what we can say for certainty that there is actually a one-to-one, very important, one-to-one correlation between mass and gravity. That's the key to all of this. And I don't have to be a proponent for globe Earth, but let me give one positive claim that relates to gravity, because gravity is the subject that I'm centering everything around. If you have gravity, and if it is omnidirectional, what happens when you have a lot of mass? If you have a lot of matter in a lump, and gravity is pulling on it, what it does is that it levels it out. Just like how water levels itself out, guess what? Mountains and shit will also level itself out with gravity. Yes, don't think that mountains can withstand the sheer stress and tension that will be created by gravity. It's impossible. It is impossible unless it's perpendicular to it. That is the only way it can work. If it is, also, yeah, the most important part though is that gravity is omnidirectional, and flat Earth. And I will repeat this over and over again. All right, people here don't understand. I'm gonna meet their guy. So people here don't understand.
You got 40 seconds left. I was letting you go. You were on a roll.
Yeah, sure. I just want people to understand. Actually, I lost it. Yeah, if you're on a flat surface, and if gravity is omnidirectional, then the net force that you will experience if you're not at the center of the flat Earth, whatever the shape, whatever the model is, you will have a force that was pulling you towards the center of the flat Earth. That is just how it works. Of course, if you have weird, unusual shapes, you will have other types of net forces. And if you have a model, please present it. However, actually, you made a lot of positive claims there. You made positive claims about electrostatics. You made positive claims about you cannot attribute property to space. You made tons of positive claims.
All right, Wizard, you ready to go?
Yeah. Okay.
This is your second last.
Cool. So you said something to the effect of you studied logic, but you keep on committing logical fallacies, bro. You just continuously reify gravity. Okay, it's preposterous, and everyone here is hearing it. Your entire argument is about gravity, but you're just reifying it. I brought up electrostatics because it's a much stronger force, meaning if there's an electrostatic relationship within the masses, which is just i.e. matter, you cannot differentiate between the electrostatic relationship and the much, much weaker postulation of this mystical deified force you keep on reifying called gravity. So you're going to have to substantiate gravity before you pin your entire argument on its existence to somehow dispute that the Earth could be flat. And once again, we do not claim a definitive model because that's the intellectually honest position to take because we don't have all the information accessible to actually come to a definitive model. Okay, now when you brought up electrostatics and act like you were going to teach me, well, really, everything with matter is inherently electrostatic. Okay, so it's a big, huge misconception of what that is, but everything with matter is electrostatic, more specifically dielectric. Okay, so everything with matter is dielectric, which means in your observation there is inherently going to be an electrostatic relationship between the matter, or if you want to call it mass, which is again just matter. So you can't, Cavendish is completely irrelevant. And again, when I said the manipulated independent variable, if we're attempting to validate or verify gravity, it cannot be manipulated. It isn't being manipulated in this thing you keep on falsely calling an experiment. So therefore it can't be verified through those means. So you're saying you're manipulating the mass. Well, you're attempting to prove this force. Again, and you can't even differentiate between a much stronger force that is inherently present. So Cavendish is laughable. It is completely irrelevant. So again, globe Earth's a positive claim. You can detach yourself from it all you want to, but it doesn't matter. It claims axial rotation, curvature, and you did not adequately explain the problem with the necessary antecedent to gas pressure being a physical container. Okay, so you claim in this globe Earth model that we have a pressurized system adjacent to a near perfect vacuum, because no vacuum is perfect. There's at least a few hydrogen atoms per cubic meter, but you claim that we're adjacent to this vacuum that is 10 to the negative 17 torr. You have to be able to substantiate the even theoretical possibility that pressure can exist in the first place without physical containment. That has not been substantiated. In fact, all observable phenomena shows us that's the very exact opposite. You are going to, again, invoke gravity, which you're just reifying. So if your entire argument is based around gravity, you're going to have to substantiate that postulation with some form of evidence. You can't just reify it. That's called a reification fallacy. So the same fallacies I've pointed out the entire time are the same ones you keep looping. Reification fallacy, shifting the burden of proof fallacy, and then your straw manning, typically, because you keep on going back to any flat earth model, certain flat earth model, doesn't matter. But I will let you off with the straw man because I know that clearly triggers you. You're still committing reification fallacies when it comes to gravity and your very globe Earth, and you are committing the shifting the burden of proof fallacy because the positive claim has the burden of proof. The globe Earth makes very specific positive claims. You can continue to distance yourself from that, but that's basically, in my opinion, a concession. A concession that you can't substantiate the globe Earth. We don't have to substantiate any definitive model. We're just falsifying your positive claim. It's very simple. So until you can substantiate gravity, you can't keep on bringing it up to prove why Earth couldn't be flat, because here's the news break for you. It is flat, my man. And I know it sounds crazy to anyone, which you've even openly admitted you haven't actually researched it. So I find it somewhat perplexing that you would come into a debate to debate against something you're completely unknowledgeable about. But if you go research it and you look for any proof for the positive claim of the globular Earth, the sphericity of Earth, you will find out that there is literally no evidence for it. There should be thousands of proofs. There's not even one. You've yet to bring one up. All you can do is continue to invoke a reification of this mystical deified force known as gravity. And again, also, gravity isn't claimed to be a force anymore. It's claimed to be the effect of warped space-time, which is a reification fallacy, because you cannot attribute a property to a privation. You cannot attribute physicality to two conceptual abstractions known as space nor time. So Einstein reified space. So you don't even have a postulation about the theoretical comprehension of what gravity could be, and you keep reifying it. So simply, if that's the best you got, I hate to break it to you, you lose.
So you're yielding your time, are you?
Yeah, yep.
All right, Weaver, this is your last one. And here we go.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm going. All right. Well, I don't really look at this as winning or losing. I think of this as a pursuit of knowledge and trying to dismiss falsehoods. I don't really care about winning. I don't really give a shit about that at all. You think I care? Of course I don't. I'm here for one purpose only, to dismiss an idea which I believe to be a psyop that has plagued the minds of honest, skeptical people. Now, let me go forward with one positive claim that you made that put a smile on my face. If I remember correctly, and you were all my witnesses, you were like, "The Earth is flat, my friend," and I believe that to be a positive claim, but I wouldn't be surprised if you dismissed that, because you have been incredibly dismissive. However, let me go on reification. What does that mean? What is the definition of reification, right? What does that mean? Right? What is the fallacy? Everybody should know what that is before you keep on repeating it, a word that not many people are familiar with. So let me explain what it is. I'm reading this off of Wikipedia. Okay. And it's the group 2 fallacy of ambiguity. All right, so reification is a fallacy of ambiguity when an abstraction, abstract belief, or hypothetical construct is treated as if it were a concrete real event or physical entity. In other words, it is an error of treating something that is not concrete, such as an idea, as a concrete thing. An idea. No, I'm not talking about a fucking idea. I'm talking about an effect. An effect that we can all see when we drop things. An effect that we can measure with experiments that have controls. An effect that we can see with mass spectrometers. It is empirical. It is the most scientific method we can do. It is observation of reality around us through instruments. That is essentially what I am doing. All right, so let me propose an experiment for you for the whole barrier thing, right? Because the gradients didn't make sense to you, and well, I wonder why. Because it makes sense to anyone. They can follow it logically. What happens when you follow a gradient is decreasing. And if you continue it to the end, what happens, right? What happens? It reaches near zero. And I like the fact that you pointed out that, yeah, there is no perfect vacuum. Absolutely. All right, so let's go with an experiment that you can do that will create a vacuum. They're essentially stuck to air in a gradient. Again, it's a gradient. There is no sudden shift. It's very important for everyone to understand that it is a gradient. So important for you to visualize that. All right, so if you get a closed container full of air, and if you spin it, the centripetal force will actually cause a decrease in pressure in the center and an increase in pressure at the walls. If you increase that fast enough, you can actually, to some extent, create a vacuum, depending on the RPMs. Why? Because of the centripetal force. And that is acceleration. This is also one of the ways that we can essentially replicate the effects of gravity in space. This is why some space station designs we're going to use centripetal force to simulate, not simulate, but create an effect similar to gravity for the crew. But that's beside the point. I'm assuming you're not really into rocket science or any of that stuff, which, whatever. Again, my job here is not to educate people. My job here is to dismiss an idea which I believe to be horrific in the way it has infected the conspiracy community. And I initially approached this idea, with an open mind. But then I came across all the, the flaws, the incoherencies in it, the mixed match between models, and how there is always a separate experience a separate explanation for everything. And also the misuse of scientific terms like density and electrostatic force. Yes, electrostatic force neutralizes itself always. Ions, what happens to ions? What happens to an ion normally? What happens? It will balance itself out. It will take an electron from another atom that's willing to give it. That is how ionic bondings even happen. Everything neutralizes itself out and creates a balance. That's how things work. So also electrostatic force and electricity, electric fields are easy to measure. Why? Because it affects electrons. We have sensitive equipment that can detect everything there is that's related to the electromagnetic spectrum. Seriously, almost anything. So, if you really believe that, it is electrostatic force that's pulling us down to the earth or something of that nature, again, I'm not going to strawman you because I don't really know what you think, because you haven't really made many positive claims other than the earth is flat, which I wonder why. Is it because, your claim to flat earth, that the model doesn't work? And there is a model. But yeah, I am not here to explain the globe earth for a different reason. I'm not doing it because I'm afraid. If I want to, I can just show you
That's
through
time.
physics. All right, fuck it.
Okay.
Oh, you ready to go?
Yeah.
This final round, my friend.
Cool. All right. So real fast, you brought up the electron. The imposed physicality of the electron has never been substantiated. It's just the terminal end of one unit line of dielectric conduction. But that's pretty non sequitur to what we're talking about, which is the nature of the Earth. You then brought up the gradient again because you didn't seem to understand me, and then you went on some subjective little rant about how you feel that this doesn't make sense or something because you haven't researched it. Then you claim you did research it, so I don't know. It's real confusing to even try to keep up with you, to be honest, because you just said, I don't know much about it. I looked it up. Now you're claiming that you researched it, but you clearly haven't. Anyway, the necessary antecedent to gas pressure is physical container. You're bringing up a gradient, which is the dispersal or the gradual decrease in the pressure. But the question is, how does the pressure exist in the first place? It's in the word pressure. Sure, it has to press on the container. Okay, the necessary antecedent to gas pressure is a physical container. Now, you did bring up that I made a positive claim, which I did. You've made none, even though the globe Earth is a positive claim. It has the burden of proof. You haven't substantiated it yet, and you had like 5 rounds to do so. You literally didn't present one form of positive evidence for the positive claims of the globe Earth, which is axial rotation, curvature, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, I will actually present evidence for my one positive claim, which is that the Earth is flat. Okay, so we have falsified the claim, and this is what is called the black swan. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, then every horizon distance measurement must be no more than 1.225 times the square root of observer's height in feet. Okay, that's called the geometric horizon. We deduce that based on the circumference, then the radius, and the observer's height. Based on your model's claim of what the size of the Earth is, we can deduce a geometric horizon, which is the tangible physical location where the Earth dips down and away from you. Here we have an observation, a still shot taken from a video at 1 foot observer height. We actually gave you 5 feet. And so if we give you 5 feet, we see that the maximum distance to the geometric horizon can be no further than 2.73 miles. Of course, as you see in the image, we have these oil rigs which serve the purpose of nothing more than a frame of reference of distance. We have 6 miles and 9 miles. As you see, the horizon is beyond the 9.41 miles of platform habitat, which means that is a physical impossibility on your globe Earth model because the geometric physical horizon can be no further than 2.73 miles. This picture alone is a death blow to the globe model. It literally falsifies the positive claim of specificity when it comes to the metric of your globe religion. So this is why it's been coined the black swan. If you make the claim that all swans are white, but you find one black swan, well, then all swans aren't white. This one single occurrence is a literal impossibility if the Earth is the globe you claim it to be. Therefore, yes, the Earth is flat. So yes, the positive claim I make has now been substantiated. Unlike you, when your entire model is the positive claim and has the burden of proof, we literally have not heard one form of positive evidence to back that positive claim yet. So again, you keep reifying space. You brought up reification and tried to define it to me and then prove to me right. You said, I'm not reifying an idea. This isn't about an effect. No, actually, gravity claims to be the cause, my man. I'm not sure if you're fully aware of what you're claiming here, but gravity claims to be the cause of the effect of things falling down that we observe. Okay, so you are actually postulating the claim of causality, and that hasn't been substantiated. Then you're reifying the conceptual abstraction of gravity and pretending that it is real and been substantiated to validate your point. So you're literally committing a reification fallacy over and over and over. Therefore, once again, the globe Earth is a positive claim. It has the burden of proof. We falsified that positive claim. There is not one single proof for the globe Earth or any of its claims. The Earth is flat. We've clearly demonstrated that. All empirical evidence and observation is on our side consistently. It's no big deal. We were all indoctrinated with it. But hey, the Earth is flat. It's all good. The globe Earth has been effectively falsified. I can see my time.
That was an
Shogun, it's up to
impressive
you, bud.
Gish Gallop and gibberish. That was impressive.
Well, hold on. So I think that was the last round, was it not?
Yes.
It is. It's all done.
Okay, so the next stage is for us to post a straw poll, if someone could do so. And everyone should vote not on the position they agree with, but the position they think was best argued. In other words, who made a better case. Then we'll have an open discussion.
I want to disconnect the recording, if that's cool with you, because I don't think the rest needs to be recorded. I want to separate the debate from everything else. Is that cool?
Sure, I guess so.
All right.